Have you ever found yourself thinking, it's not worth it? I'll just let it go. I'm above this. How many times have you swallowed your words, held back your voice, suppressed the scream stuck in your throat just to avoid a conflict? Let me tell you something that might sting a little. Every time you do that, you betray yourself. We've grown up in a culture that glorifies the illusion of peace. From childhood, we're told that avoiding confrontation is maturity, that staying quiet when something upsets you is a sign of emotional strength, that silence is dignity. But that's a lie. Nietzsche saw through this with brutal clarity. He understood that much of what we call virtue is really just fear, wearing a mask, fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as aggressive, or worse, selfish. But here's the truth. As long as you live to please others, as long as you shape yourself to avoid tension, you'll be forced to swallow your anger again and again. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a morality born from weakness. It was not created by the strong or the free, but by those who were powerless, those who, unable to fight back, crafted a system of values where submission was a virtue, where being oppressed became synonymous with being good. And the worst part, this system has become our norm. It's the default programming. You think you're being kind, but in reality, you're allowing yourself to be controlled. Now, take a breath and really ask yourself, how many injustices have you accepted just to keep the peace? How many times have you stayed silent, even when everything in you screamed to speak up? How many offenses, how many moments of humiliation or disrespect have you swallowed just to avoid rocking the boat? I'm not saying you should go around picking fights or causing chaos. This isn't about being hostile. It's about reclaiming your right to exist fully and honestly, with dignity, with self-respect. Because if you don't face conflict, it will eventually consume you. The resentment will build, quietly, slowly, until one day it explodes when you least expect it, and in a way you might not control. Or worse, it turns inward. You sink into numbness. You convince yourself that being good means being passive, harmless. But Nietzsche offers a different path, a path that defies quiet submission. A philosophy that says conflict isn't your enemy, it's your doorway to liberation. In this video, we're going to explore Nietzsche's view on confrontation and the hidden cost of avoiding it. You'll understand how slave morality is still controlling your choices today, and more importantly, how to break free from it. Are you ready to hear something uncomfortable but true? Then stay with me, because what comes next might completely change the way you understand conflict and yourself. Let's go deeper. To truly understand this fear of confrontation, we must step beyond your personal experiences and look into the very roots of morality itself. And no one explored that dark territory more honestly than Friedrich Nietzsche. Now that you've seen how slave morality has taught us to fear conflict, let's go one layer deeper into the very roots of this twisted value system. Nietzsche boldly claimed that what we often judge as good didn't grow from noble intentions or high-minded ideals. No, it was born from impotence, from bitterness, from the inability of the weak to match the power of the strong. Picture a time when strength ruled the world, when warriors and noble leaders didn't apologize for their power. They asserted it. They created boundaries. They took pride in their ability to shape reality according to their will. Their morality was based on action, affirmation, and self-mastery. For them, being good meant being strong, courageous, honorable, self-reliant. But not everyone could live that way. There were others, the weaker ones, who lacked the power to win, to stand tall in the arena of life. They couldn't fight the strong, so they found another weapon. They rewrote the rules. And how did they do that? By flipping values on their heads. Suddenly, what had once been admired, power, confidence, independence, was condemned, labeled as sinful, dangerous, even evil. Meanwhile, the traits of the powerless obedience, submission, retreat, were transformed into so-called virtues. Not because these traits were truly admirable, but because they were all the weak had left. It was, as Nietzsche described, a clever act of survival, a psychological revolt, not from power, but from powerlessness. He called it slave morality, a moral framework not born from a celebration of life, but from a deep denial of it. It dressed up fear as virtue, turned retreat into nobility, and painted passivity as wisdom. It told people that stepping back was noble, that surrendering was saintly. And if you think all this is ancient history, think again. This slave morality still pulses through modern life. It shaped the way you were raised. It's hidden in the innocent-sounding phrases you heard growing up. Don't argue, don't talk back, be polite, don't cause trouble. These weren't just lessons in manners, they were silent commands teaching you to equate obedience with goodness. From the moment you learned to stay quiet to keep the peace, you were absorbing this morality. And each time you bite your tongue, nod when you disagree, or avoid standing your ground just to avoid friction, you're being pulled by that same old programming. But let's be clear, this doesn't mean you're weak by nature. It means you were taught that strength is shameful. You were conditioned to believe that speaking up, setting boundaries, or expressing your will is wrong. That goodness means being harmless. And what's the result? A widespread psychological trap, a quiet epidemic. Millions of people walking around with a fear of confrontation, a fear of their own strength. They call it maturity, but it's not maturity, it's fear, disguised as virtue, and fear, when ignored, doesn't fade, it festers, because here's the most dangerous part. The anger you keep suppressing, it doesn't vanish, it transforms, it turns inward. It becomes resentment, and that resentment is the hidden fuel behind this passivity. It's what gnaws at you silently, turning every avoided conflict into a wound that never quite heals. In the next section, we'll confront this poison head-on. You'll see how resentment, quiet, disguised, and destructive, is shaping your life from the inside out. Are you ready for that truth? Then stay with me, because the hardest truths are the ones that finally set you free. We've just uncovered how avoiding conflict creates a hidden poison, resentment. Now it's time to look even deeper into how this poison spreads and takes root in your life. Nietzsche, a relentless observer of the human soul, dissected resentment with chilling precision. On the Genealogy of Morals, he explains that resentment is born when a natural, vital impulse, the desire to act, to assert yourself, to express your will, is blocked and cannot be expressed. But here's the key. The energy doesn't simply disappear. It turns inward. Instead of becoming courageous action, it transforms into a slow, corrosive poison, eating away at your clarity, your energy, and eventually, your sense of self. The person trapped in resentment is not someone without desire. They are someone who has been taught that expressing that desire is dangerous. They've learned that standing up for themselves risks rejection, that speaking the truth might spark judgment, that asserting boundaries could cost them love or approval. And so, they do what they've been conditioned to do. They bury it. They suppress what they feel and build a moral story around their silence. They tell themselves, I'm more mature because I don't argue, or I'm above the drama. But let's not sugarcoat. If that's not strength, that's camouflage. Beneath the politeness and restraint often lies a quiet storm. Bitter mixture of frustration, sadness, and anger that has nowhere to go. You know the feeling, don't you? That tension in your chest when someone disrespects you and you say nothing. That replay loop in your mind where you imagine the words you should have said but didn't. That bitterness you feel after letting someone cross a line again while you nod and smile. That is resentment. And Nietzsche warns us, resentment doesn't just exist in private moments. It shapes your personality, your relationships, your life path. You begin to adapt your identity to your wounds. You act nice, but inside you're burning. You become agreeable, but deep down you're seething. And over time, that split between who you are and how you act begins to eat away at your authenticity. You lose the ability to trust your own instincts. The tragic part, the longer you live this way, the more trapped you become. The more resentment you store, the more paralyzed you feel. The more you avoid conflict, the more you fear it. And that fear grows until it dictates your every decision. Slowly, silently, you start to shrink. Your voice fades. Your presence weakens. You convince yourself you're being good by keeping the peace, but in truth, you're abandoning yourself in plain sight. But Nietzsche didn't expose these truths to depress you, he revealed them to free you. He believed in a force greater than resentment, the will to power, not domination over others, but mastery over yourself, the courage to stand tall in your own truth, the strength to face discomfort rather than bury it, the fire to reclaim your voice without apology. And that is exactly where we're headed next. Because when you stop running from conflict and start embracing your inner strength, something radical begins to happen. You stop living like a hostage, and you start living like the author of your own life. You've just seen how Nietzsche shattered the illusion that fear of conflict is a virtue. Now, let's go deeper into his vision, not just exposing the disease, but uncovering the path to true transformation. Nietzsche was not a philosopher, content with merely diagnosing the illnesses of the human soul. He wanted more than awareness, he sought emancipation, and the key to breaking free from the inner prison of fear, resentment, and submission lies in one of his most powerful and widely misunderstood concepts, the will to power. Over time, many have wrongly reduced this idea to a lust for domination, a caricature of Nietzsche's true meaning. But when he spoke of the will to power, he wasn't glorifying conquest over others. He was revealing something far more profound, the raw, innate drive that exists in every living being to expand, to grow, to surpass limits. It's the same force that pushes a seed to break through the soil toward the sun, that compels a cub to step out of the cave and face the world, and that fuels the human soul to create, to dare, and to transcend itself. This is the authentic will to power. It is not born from ego or cruelty. It is the pulse of life itself. But here's the tragedy. The morality of the slave, as Nietzsche called it, tries to kill this energy. It whispers, don't desire too much. Don't assert yourself. Don't be bold. Don't stand out. Be good. Be quiet. Be safe. And little by little, you shrink yourself to fit into a cage built by someone else's comfort. And what happens when this powerful inner force is denied? It doesn't vanish. No, it twists inward. It curdles. It turns into frustration, into apathy, into resentment. That's why so many walk around feeling heavy, bitter, exhausted, not because they are weak, but because they have spent their lives suppressing their vital instinct to rise. To reclaim your will to power is to reconnect with the very core of your being, the energy that once made you curious, passionate, daring. It is to stop believing the lie that virtue lies in weakness. It is to realize that life is, by nature, filled with tension and friction, and that stepping into conflict, when done with awareness, is not an act of violence, but of self-respect. So, how do you begin? First, by understanding that fear of conflict is not moral strength. It is inherited paralysis, a pattern you must now unlearn. Second, start small. Say no when you mean no. Speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Stop apologizing for taking up space. Third, learn to face confrontation with clarity, not to win, but to stand firm in who you are. The will to power isn't about crushing others. It's about no longer being crushed by your own silence. It's about standing tall, walking with a straight spine, and living with an untamed soul. But Nietzsche knew that reclaiming this inner force doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a process, a transformation. And to describe it, he offered one of the most beautiful and powerful metaphors in all of philosophy: the three metamorphoses of the spirit, from camel to lion to child. That's what we'll explore next. What does it truly mean to stop being the camel who carries burdens for others and instead become the lion who claims freedom? And how, after that, can we return to the innocence and creativity of the child, the final stage of becoming truly alive? Let's keep going. The journey has just begun. You've just seen how Nietzsche traced our transformation from burdened submission to fierce self-assertion. Now, let's begin mapping that inner evolution step by step, starting with the spirit's first form, the camel. The camel represents the stage in which most people begin their journey. It is the spirit that kneels, obedient and enduring, beneath the crushing weight of societal expectations. This camel carries heavy loads without complaint: cultural rules, moral duties, invisible scripts passed down for generations. It is told, you must be humble, you must not make waves, you must endure in silence. And so, it does. With each command obeyed, with each urge suppressed, the camel grows proud of its suffering. It mistakes submission for strength. It believes that saying yes to everything, no matter how unjust, how dehumanizing, is a sign of virtue. But Nietzsche saw through that illusion. The strength of the camel is not creative, not life-affirming. It is sterile. It is the strength of someone who survives, not someone who lives. Perhaps you recognize this stage. Perhaps you've lived it, bowing to every should, blending into the background to avoid conflict, mistaking exhaustion for goodness. But the human spirit is not meant to remain a beast of burden forever. There comes a point when the camel's knees begin to ache, not just from the weight itself, but from the lies it has accepted for too long. A quiet voice begins to rise inside. Enough. This marks the birth of the second metamorphosis. The lion. The lion is not submissive. It does not obey simply because it's told to. The lion's first act is to say a clear, defiant no. Number. To external expectations. No to inherited morality. No to roles that strangle your true voice. This lion is the embodiment of your awakened will to power. It isn't violent by nature, doesn't seek destruction for destruction's sake. Rather, it fights to claim inner territory, a sacred space where it can live truthfully, free from manipulation and compromise. But to carve out that space, the lion must face its fiercest adversary, the dragon of thou shalt. This dragon gleams with thousands of shimmering scales, and on each one is written a commandment. Thou shalt be nice. Thou shalt not challenge. Thou shalt never offend. The dragon is beautiful, deceptive, and ancient. It represents all the inherited beliefs that have silenced generations before you. Defeating this dragon demands immense courage. It requires facing down shame, rejection, and guilt, especially the guilt you've carried since childhood. You'll be called selfish, arrogant, ungrateful. But this is the cost of freedom. You are not destroying goodness, you are reclaiming truth. Only when you can say no with conviction and peace do you unlock the prison of passive submission. And then, from the ashes of that battle, comes the third and final metamorphosis, the child. The child is not weak, nor naive. This is the spirit reborn, liberated from the burdens of the camel, and no longer driven by the defensiveness of the lion. Now, the spirit is light, creative, joyful. It no longer reacts to the world, it shapes it. The child invents new values, chooses freely what to honor and what to let go. It doesn't avoid conflict, but no longer sees it as war. Instead, it sees it as space to express the truth, to be fully alive. It is here, finally, that you stop playing roles and begin to live with authenticity. This is the full arc of rebirth that Nietzsche invites you into. But to reach it, you must walk through fire. You must step into rejection, into the unknown, into the shaking moment when your voice finally speaks without apology. It is not easy, but it is real. And now, a deeper question arises. How do you strip away the roles, the voices, the fears, and discover the you beneath it all? Nietzsche doesn't give a simple answer, but he does give us a powerful starting point. That's what we'll explore in the next part. You've already seen how Nietzsche calls us to confront the fear of conflict as a gateway to transformation. Now, let's follow that path deeper into the heart of one of his most personal and challenging ideas, becoming who you are. In his bold and revealing work Exe Homo, Nietzsche offers what seems like a simple phrase, but is, in truth, a lifelong challenge. Become who you are. It sounds like a promise, but it's really a trial. He doesn't present it as something natural, automatic, or effortless. Quite the opposite. For Nietzsche, becoming your true self is a battle, a series of awakenings and ruptures that demand everything from you. And the very first battle you must face is the fear of conflict. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your life have you lived trying to satisfy others? How often have you chosen the path that pleased your parents, your partner, your friends, your boss even, if that path went against your own desires? How many times have you swallowed your truth just to avoid discomfort? These questions are not small. They cut to the root of your existence. Nietzsche exposes this for what it is, the quiet tragedy of a life unlived. Most people never become who they are. Instead, they become what they believe the world wants them to be. They wear masks, they adopt roles, they conform, and each time they do, something essential is lost. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you take a step further away from yourself. Every time you dodge an honest confrontation, a piece of your identity fades. Every time you silence your true will, your inner fire dims. But Nietzsche was not just warning, as he was revealing a path. He understood that conflict is not a side effect of living honestly. It is the very arena where identity is forged. It is through struggle against others' expectations, against social norms, against your own conditioned fears, that you discover what truly matters to you. Conflict reveals your values. It tests your convictions. It shows you what you are and what you are not. Without conflict, you cannot know yourself. And without self-knowledge, you cannot live an authentic life. What you're left with is an empty performance, a play without soul. So, to truly become who you are, you must summon the courage to step into necessary confrontations. You must say no to the roles that suffocate you. No to inherited beliefs that no longer serve you. No to the part of yourself that would rather be accepted than be free. And here is where Nietzsche pushes us further. The path to becoming is radically individual. There is no map, no fixed model, no external morality to follow. You must create your own path, your own values, your own way of being in the world. That sounds liberating, but it is also terrifying. Without the rules of the herd, you are alone. At first, that solitude stings. You may lose praise, you may lose comfort, you may lose the illusion that you are safe. But what you gain in return is priceless. Integrity. With every boundary you draw, every truth you speak, no matter how difficult, you reclaim yourself. Every time you honor what is real in you instead of what is expected, you step closer to the life only you can live. Nietzsche never promised ease, but he did promise something more meaningful than comfort: the chance to live with soul, with truth, with freedom. So now the question is, if becoming who you are requires so much courage, where does that courage come from? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next part. Because Nietzsche believed that to truly walk this path, you must embrace one final transformation, one final paradox that redefines what strength really means. Let's dive into it. You've now seen that silence, often mistaken for virtue, can be one of the most dangerous forms of complicity. But what happens when you decide not to remain silent anymore? To live truthfully, to live with dignity, you must first accept an uncomfortable truth. Silence in the face of injustice, abuse, or oppression is not wisdom, is complicity. And that's what we'll explore now, as we move into the final part of this journey. Maybe you've convinced yourself that keeping quiet was the mature thing to do. Maybe you've said, what's the point of speaking up? It won't change anything. Maybe you've endured disrespect, tolerated manipulation, and swallowed pain telling yourself it was for the sake of harmony. But here's the hard truth. Every time you choose silence in the face of what is wrong, you are not staying neutral. You are validating the very behavior that hurts you. You are allowing the cycle to continue, both in your personal life and in the world around you. Nietzsche saw through this moral illusion. He understood that a morality based on fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of discomfort, not lead to peace. It leads to spiritual decay. When you stay silent to avoid discomfort, you are not building a life of peace. You are burying your own will, and you can feel it, can't you? That quiet death of your truth, that slow erosion of your fire. And don't think the world doesn't notice. People, especially those who manipulate, can sense when you're afraid to set boundaries, and they exploit it. What you think protects you actually makes you more vulnerable. Every boundary you fail to speak becomes an invitation for someone to cross it. Every truth you hide gives space for lies to grow. Silence, in these moments, is not just passive, it's dangerous. So, what's the alternative? Nietzsche gives us a clear answer: courage. And courage is not about the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to act despite fear. It's the moment when you choose to stand up for what matters, even if your voice shakes, even if it costs you approval, even if it means confrontation. Conflict, when necessary, is not destruction, it's a declaration. It's the field where you assert your integrity, your boundaries, and your values. When you choose to face it, you're not being being alive, fully, completely, without compromise. So, the next time you feel the urge to stay silent, ask yourself, am I being wise? Or am I being cowardly? That question, asked honestly, can be life-changing, because becoming who you truly are doesn't happen in quiet surrender. It happens in bold affirmation. It happens when you draw lines, when you say no, when you speak what must be spoken. You are not here to be an eternal camel, carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. You are the lion who says no, and the child who says yes to life. And this moment right here, right now, is your invitation to begin. If any part of this spoke to something deep inside you, write it down, make it real, comment below. I choose to no longer remain silent. That sentence may seem small, but it is an act of defiance against everything that has kept you quiet. And from that first act, everything can change. But don't stop here. This is only the beginning. The next video will help you go even deeper into this process of becoming, of rebuilding your life on your terms. I'll see you there.